Happy Friday and welcome back to our conversation about living in such a way that this new year could be the best year of our life. And if we're going to have the best year we've ever had, we have to live in a different way. And this week we've unpacked how we can live present to the present moment. And what I think will inevitably make this year better than any year you've ever had is a transformed relationship with God and an experience of Him with you in the midst of every step of the journey. This is Father Mark over at Christ Redeemer Catholic Church, and today I want to have a conversation with you about how we can be present to God in the present moment. And the first encouragement I want to offer you is the fact that God is already present to you in the present moment. You know, regardless of the kind of day that we're having, God's not having that kind of day. In other words, if we're having a bad day, He's not having a bad day. If we feel rushed, He's not feeling rushed. If we're struggling to hear Him, He's not struggling to hear us. The first good news for you today is that God's always present to us, even if we don't feel His presence with us. And one of the things that will more dispose us to finding God with us in the present moment is our ability to, I think, number one, embrace silence. Number two, pay attention in the silence. And number three, cultivate the capacity and the habit and the virtue of patience. Let's unpack those three things today. How is it that we can be present to God who is present to us in the present moment? And the first is to just embrace more silence in our life. It's almost contrary to where our culture seems to be moving. But the further we move away from silence, the further I fear, to quote Pope Benedict XVI, that we are becoming less and less human. We need silence in our life. We were actually built for silence. Silence, you might say, is the canvas upon which God paints some of the most beautiful conversations with us. And silence is where we find ourselves reflecting upon life, learning from life. Silence is where we can hear ourselves think. We're more attentive to hearing other people speak. Silence is where we're going to ultimately discover the peace and the freedom and the exhale of life. So the first thing that will dispose us to being present to God in the present moment is just embracing more silence in our life. That means we have to say no, right, to things that pull us out of silence. That's why we had that conversation yesterday. If you didn't hear yesterday's podcast, can't encourage you enough to go there because they go hand in hand. If we're going to have silence, then we have to dispose ourselves and create the space for the silence. A lot of reasons why people don't like silence because they don't know what to do in the silence. So the second thing that has a great influence over our being present to God in the present moment is knowing what to do or how to pay attention in the silence. You know, a lot of times people run from silence because it just feels like it's empty. But there, in the silence, you'll discover lots of things. We'll discover perhaps where we are restless. We'll discover perhaps what we long for, what we ache for. In other words, you got to know how to pay attention and listen to the silence. I had this profound experience just a few months ago of taking a 3-day offshore fishing trip with some people that I love dearly in my life, Laura and Jonathan. And we were out there, we were on the water, and I had the privilege of just sleeping outside under the stars. And I was amazed with how quiet it was. And the more that I just let myself pay attention to the quiet, I heard all kinds of things. I heard the sound of the water. I heard the sound of the wind. I heard the sound of my own body, and I heard my heart and all the things that are there. And it's almost like it took me a little while to actually get quiet. I don't know if you've ever looked at the stars, but that night I was astonished with that it took me a while for my eyes to adjust. But yet the more that I looked at it, the more the eyes adjusted, I saw stars that I didn't see when I first started looking up there, right? It's like silence, right? The quieter we are, we'll just discover more of the quote-unquote stars, you might say, inside our heart that just gradually appear if we're silent. So we just need to pay attention to our emotions. We need to pay attention to our thoughts. We need to pay attention to our desires. If we pay attention to those things in the silence, we'll actually then find all kinds of things that we can talk to God about. And that requires sometimes just being patient with ourselves. Sometimes God doesn't speak to us as fast as we would want or about the things that we want. And we just need to be patient. We need to learn how to wait. Gosh, if there's anything that I think we're losing our capacity for, it's our capacity to wait. And I don't think that that's really good for us. I don't think that our inability to wait is actually an advancement. And I don't think that God's going to change his behavior just because we're becoming a more impatient. And I just think that God knows that it's healthy for us to be patient. And if he's not moving as fast as you want, sometimes that's because it's not healthy for us to want the things as fast as we want, right? So those three things that we can do in the present moment to be present to God with us in the present moment. Number one, ask yourself about silence. Number two, pay attention to things in the silence. And number three, just be patient. So what's one thing that you can do today on this Friday? Well, just carve out some time for silence. Really, 10 minutes. If you can't find 10 minutes today in order to carve out silence, then you are too busy. And I say that to myself, but I say that to us with great love. Come on, we can find 10 minutes. How about for 10 minutes today, you don't do anything other than just close your eyes and be present to silence. Pay attention to what happens. Who knows? You might even find God right there with you in the present moment. God bless you.